And Jen will be talking on a very, very important topic that had been touched upon multiple times through this conference on emergence of language copilots. So we've been talking a lot about where does human fit in this and what is the human-machine interaction. And Jen will share more, so off to you.
Thank you, Olga. Hi, everybody. So the first few slides we're probably going to go through. Everybody's heard a lot about it already at the conference, especially in the keynote. So we're going to kind of go a little bit quickly, and then we're going to focus a little bit more. The entire takeaway is basically kind of what we as an industry need to work on in terms of tooling and possibly new skill sets for linguists for the future, especially with AI in the picture. So hi, my name is Jennifer Wong. You guys might not know me. It's my first time at Gala. So my background is a lot in UX design, product management, and I've been working in ML AI space since 2018 for different various companies. I've worked across the industries, usually as the implementer for localization tooling and processes, but now I'm on the other side as provider. So I started at Sparling in 2020, and now I'm head of AI product strategy. So we all know the emergence of AI. November 2022, the world kind of changed dramatically with ChatGPT's launch. And since then, we've seen numerous LLMs being launched almost on a daily basis. Basically, every day, if you're keeping up, every 2 days, there's a new model, there's new information, there's new findings. So this world is moving incredibly fast. We know Google launched their Vertex AI, Amazon has Bedrock, Anthropic, Mistral, and IBM Watson, not to mention OpenAI's GPT. And since the emergence of AI, there have been quite a lot of stories in the news about how translators and people that do normal everyday jobs that can be replaced with AI. A lot of this is kind of really hyped in the media, causing a lot of confusion and fear among a lot of people, not just in the linguistic industry, but across also in design, in product, in kind of any kind of writing or technical writing. But AI is definitely not perfect. We know of a lot of the downsides of AI. There's a lot of things that happen by using AI that are kind of hard to find, especially if you automate without any kind of person in the loop. So we know that AI has hallucinated. We know that it spreads false information. It is definitely, I like to compare it to somebody that does improv. It's like a yes and, like, yeah, sure, and let's just keep going. And it's a very positive reaffirmation type of tooling. It refuses sometimes to do what you want. So we've noticed this by testing it. You can ask it to do something. If it thinks it knows better than you, it's like, no, no, no. I'm going to do this because I'm pretty sure this is right. Ironic because it's also a yes man, so a little bit strange. But it cannot handle lower resource languages. This is really something that's specific to our industry that we have trouble with using AI. LLMs specifically. Of course, we all know, we've talked a lot about the unintended biases that LLMs present because of the type of data that is being fed to train these models. And of course, that it's culturally skewed towards West, mostly US culture. A lot of these companies are developing models in the United States or Western Europe, so a lot of the times we select content and we provide content to models that are more Western skewed. So sometimes you'll notice, I think it's very interesting, I saw a post the other day that says you can tell that OpenAI is American because of how excited it always is when it gives you a response. It's always like, yeah, great, you know, what's wonderful, it's amazing. Which is really funny because then when I tried using OpenAI right after that, ChatGPT, it was very positive about everything. I was like, I can see it. It's kind of like talking to an American colleague here. So actually, what that leads me to is this topic that we've been discussing of the emergence of co-piloting. So what does this actually mean? And co-pilots are popping up around the industry. So most notably is the GitHub Copilot or Microsoft Copilot, where it helps developers actually write code. So it's not necessarily, there was also a bit of a fear, you know, AI, LLMs can write their own code. It can put up, you know, the code for a website within a day. Why do we need developers? They didn't see this as something to be afraid of. They saw this as something to embrace. So how can I best use this to automate the things that I need to do on a daily basis? And how can I turn it into a tool that'll help me do this? It's a great way to augment your work using AI. I don't know if anybody's heard of Microsoft Copiloting? Yeah? Okay. It's a big news headline, right? But what does this actually mean for the translation industry? All right, let's take a look at the linguist interaction with content. This is a very basic workflow. So we have job creation, authorization, and assignment. Everything happens on the project management side. And then you have the translation or machine translation, editing or post-editing, review process that may or may not be there. After it's published, you have a quality assurance. So now let's take a look at where linguists actually interact with the content. So here you can see linguists interact with the majority of it. I mean, to be fair, I made the project management side very small as one box, so it looks dramatically skewed, but of course, linguists are highly interactive with content once it becomes authorized and goes through the translation process. Now let's take a look at where AI actually can help us automate things. So based on industry trends, what we see is that a lot of the times AI has heavily to do with job creation, authorization, or assignment, identifying what content you actually want to translate. The entire translation, machine translation part, like whether or not you use MT, a human, or AI directly to create translations or augment your translations. Editing and post-editing, so it has to do with the first one a little bit, where it actually generates the translation or post-edits it. And then, of course, in the quality assurance. So quality assurance is a big topic in terms of this industry itself, but also how we can automate it with an LLM. But is AI going to take over the work from linguists? This is the big question that we have. But we see a shift towards the future. It's not necessarily an all or nothing approach. There's nothing that's black or white in this world, just like how AI got released, no one's going to lose their jobs immediately. And what this actually means is that actually AI can be used to empower humans to not replace them, but actually create a new era of AI-empowered linguists. And this is something that's very, very new. I mean, our keynote speaker talked a lot about it. It's not necessarily that the entire job is going to be replaced. It just means that certain things that we do on a daily basis might be replaced by AI, but that opens us up to new possibilities of what we can do with existing tasks that AI cannot do, or even new tasks in order to augment and help AI reach that human translation perfection. So what does this really mean? All right, we're going to take a look at two specific areas of translation that linguists work in today. We're going to talk about kind of the new skills, the new paradigm of exactly what they're going to need to do, and then we're going to talk about some new skills that are going to come in. So the first of all is, of course, translation, editing, the review process, which mostly takes place in a CAT tool. So with the CAT tool itself, we actually need to be able to allow linguists to execute new tasks. So it's not necessarily writing the translation, it's not necessarily post-editing, but there's a lot of other things that are going to come up. So if you use prompting to generate your translations or prompting to enhance your editing process, we're going to need to give them a tool, linguists a tool, to generate, iterate, and select different types of translations. This is going to be a whole new concept of how we actually cognitively function when we're inside the CAT tool itself. It's going to be less about thinking, hey, exactly what is this translation? How am I going to go from A to B? How am I going to communicate what A said? But it's going to be more of, all right, so these are my options. What actually makes the most sense? What would convey the meaning the most? How can I update this or edit this or prompt an LLM to change this translation to convey the meaning better? How are we going to go that extra step in terms of the translation itself? Another part is actually having to do with validation and fact-checking. So, of course, LLMs hallucinate. They say sometimes the wrong things. They might translate something incorrectly. And as a linguist, especially if you're not working directly on the customer side, or if this is a new customer that you're working with, you need to fact-check. You need to make sure that translation not only makes sense, is grammatically correct, but also makes sense to the actual industry you're translating to, for the customer you're translating into. Especially with customer brands evolving and changing so much, so quickly nowadays, It's important not only to keep up with your industry, but you all of a sudden have to keep up with the industry of all the clients you're working with. That's almost an impossible task. You guys have a very hard job as it is, and then you're having to learn a completely different industry in order to make sure you have the correct translations. This is something that we can use LLMs to augment and help you do. In addition to that, providing feedback to close the loop. So we talked a lot about, this entire conference has talked a lot about humans are needed to actually kind of feed information. Machines aren't made by just kind of one day to the next. They have all the information labeled, accurate, correct. We actually have to help them close that loop so they can actually learn, improve the machines themselves, improve the models, and actually provide better translations. So as we're going, it becomes a very essential part to involve linguists into the AI process. There's no black or white, today we have a linguist and tomorrow we don't need one. It's really about how do we actually evolve the entire industry together, combining technology with the people who've been doing it for the last few decades. The next part we're going to take a look at is into the LQA tooling. So a lot about the entire process of quality estimation, quality assurance in itself. So what does this actually mean? We're talking about the next generation of LQA tooling. A lot of it today is about kind of how we actually analyze, a linguist can take a look at the translations, rate the quality, how severe is this error, and then provide a scoring at the end of the day. But what if we can actually augment this by actually creating pre-marked issues or suggest issues that are with this translation? This is kind of the easy first step. An LLM can actually easily tell you exactly what could be improved, what could be potentially wrong with a specific translation, and then the human can actually validate the AI doing the work and actually improve that and close the loop again. Not in addition to that, of course, the easy lookup and feedback. I've worked with quite a lot of linguists in terms of the LQA tooling itself. And a lot of the times, especially if you're just kind of reviewing quality on a customer content that you might not know or industry, goes back to the same topic. You have to learn a lot about a customer and an industry in order to provide accurate information about the quality of a translation. It's not just about the grammar, it's about the meaning that you convey with that actual translation itself. And I hallucinated and I added my note here. So I was gonna put an LQA truth, so please ignore that. Humans can do it too. That was submitted before I deleted that sentence. But the entire point is, of course, that LQA can actually help be empowered and actually driven using AI. Now, we've kind of touched on two topics about the CAT tool itself and the LQA tool itself, how we currently have tools that need to kind of be improved so that we incorporate AI, we allow the linguists to actually utilize the power of the technology that we have at hand. We're gonna look at two new areas where I'm gonna spend a little bit more time on. So new tooling and skills. So the first one is really focusing on the translation and machine translation section of the entire journey. What does this actually mean? So has anybody actually tried writing prompts for translations? Raise of hands. Okay, how many people have said they've done it successfully and it's a really good translation? All right. So I can see some questions here. So nobody's worried about LLMs kind of taking over that entire process. But what we've learned over the last about a year of working with linguists together on prompt engineering is that you need highly specific prompting per language, per context of that translation in order to achieve a really good translation. It's not so easy as saying, hey, translate this from English to Spanish. It's not so easy as, please translate this from English to Spanish for a customer. You really have to provide that information, that context. An LLM doesn't know where it needs to draw information from. It knows what you know, but it also knows what a million other people in the world, billions of other people in the world know. So you have to actually direct it in a specific direction to say, hey, you're gonna have to focus on this specific area for this specific customer, for this specific type of persona. Who am I reaching? Is it internal employee? Or is it actually somebody that's external? Am I looking for a high-end client? Or am I looking to talk to the users directly who are not the payers? So it's a lot of kind of fine-tuning of your prompt. It's a lot of work. And as we work with linguists to do this, we know it's a different way of thinking. I mean, so the reason why prompting has worked so well in the development space is it's developed by developers, right? So they have a very specific way of thinking. It's not the same way everybody else thinks. So when you talk to the machine developed by developers, it's like talking directly to a developer. You have to know how to speak its language to get exactly what you want out of it. So as I mentioned, it's highly specific per industry, per context, and at the end of the day, the linguists are going to lead the revolution of using prompting in your translation process. Linguists actually understand this entire concept of how languages work, how they flow, how it would culturally be relevant to a customer, how it works within an industry, how does it work in general, and that's actually the part that's missing between the link of prompting and having good translations. Now, of course, this is just thinking about translating from A to B. But what if we get a little bit creative? Because it's not necessarily that a linguist has to just translate anymore. What if we actually translate, sorry, what if we actually make translators content engineers in the future? What happens if we want to get translations to be a bit more creative? We don't necessarily have to stick to this paradigm of this is the input and this is the output. You now have the freedom to actually give translators, an example is, give them a brief, a content brief, a creative piece that they can actually just produce the entire content. They don't actually need to look at the previous one. They can use it as reference material. You can feed it into the LLM as a reference material. But at the end of the day, you can empower translators to then be that person to actually create content for a specific niche, for a specific group. You don't have to generalize anymore. We brought the entire idea of generalizing translations to languages or locales because there was no other better way in the past to actually target mass groups of people. And now we have this capability, and it happens much faster than it used to. All right, so the entire idea is that these content engineers can craft brands for content for larger organizations. We don't have to be stuck in this paradigm of A to B. Now, in addition to this idea of content engineering, we have, of course, data analytics. This is a huge upcoming field in development among engineers, among software companies, and I think it's going to continue to grow as we actually expand into more and more industries with AI in itself. So we're looking at, analyzing the data, the feedback of what a machine produces, what the LLM produces for a specific language, and not only be able to analyze how good it's performing, how well it works, but being able to find the patterns in the error. And this is actually what we do internally in order to understand exactly how a prompt is working. We have linguists kind of look through all the poor translations they've marked, find the patterns itself, and figure out a way to prompt the LLM so that it actually fixes these problems directly, so that you can actually feed back into the prompt itself and improve the translation. And these ideas of pattern finding for languages is actually way more complicated. We go into very deep discussions with our linguists about how French is as a language for a specific culture, and it's not specific as, I found a book about the French grammar rules and I put that all into a system. It's very, very deeply rooted in exactly how you communicate to different people. And in addition to that, linguists can then take this information and brainstorm ways to prompt ML models to not only fix it, but improve as it moves on, not only for translations, but also for quality assurance purposes. There is a new era for linguists coming. There's a lot of things that are going to happen in the field. It feels a bit scary, but it's all, it's your everyday work. It's exactly what you know already, and it's just taking it to the next level. How are you going to evolve the knowledge that you have and use it in a different way? So with the new CAT tool, with the new LQA tool, with the new role as a prompt engineer and as a data analyst for your organizations. Now let's go quick review of everything. So we know AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, but it's also not the best. It's not 100% perfect at the moment. And linguists will become the co-pilots to actually working with machines, being empowered by AI to produce these translations, to be able to actually do quality assurance much faster and more accurately. And what this means is exactly what I said. New CAT tool, new LQA tool, prompt engineering tooling, and analytics tools in your daily lives. Okay, so languages are alive. And languages will continue to grow and evolve in very surprising ways, as we've heard from countless people at this conference today and yesterday. And languages bring people together. It's a living thing. It embodies a culture and a way of communication. So linguists aren't going anywhere because you guys actually do embody that entire concept of a culture and how people communicate in a specific way. So AI cannot keep up alone. AI will need co-pilots of linguists in order to actually provide the services that LLMs have promised to provide. They need to provide existing and new services to enable global development. AI will become a big factor in the way we communicate, and together we're going to facilitate the change of how we actually adopt LLMs as an industry.